Procharger on a 2022 Challenger. This thing turned out sick, so I'll stick around and I'm gonna get into what we did. We ran into some complications, mainly because Procharger put some of the wrong bolts in the kit, and we decided to not use the Diablo handheld, which I'll go over that here in a minute. We're hoping to see around 600 horsepower out of this kit. You know, it's a 6.4 scat pack. It's a wide body. I mean, it's a really, really nice car. It's automatic. It is a tank, so I mean, however much power it makes, it's gonna feel planted on the road no matter what. So let's get into it, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. So with Diablo, it comes with a Diablo tuner with tunes and everything, but the PCM still has to be sent out to Diablo to be unlocked. So the question I had for the rep was, does it affect the ability to use HP tuners later on down the road? Because we plan on making more power later, even if we do header, stuff like that. And he said that basically it's Diablo's way of doing it, makes it where HP tuners can't do it. So we're gonna scratch the whole idea of using Diablo's handheld that has like a preloaded tune. And I'm just gonna send the PCM off to HP tuners and get them to actually unlock it, so we can do a proper like dyno tune on the vehicle and be able to have the ability to do some adjustments later on down the road. So I'm gonna get this thing, I gotta get the tune off the car now, send that in with the PCM. Like I gotta send them a file, and about a week later, then maybe they'll send me the PCM back and we'll get this thing tuned. But I still gotta install the kit, but the first thing I wanna do is get the PCM sent off, so we're not just waiting on that once the car's put together. So let's get in this thing and get it ready. So I got HP tuners bypass cable. This is for the security gateway. You have to have this just so you can bypass the security. A lot of these newer Dodge, Chrysler vehicles, 2015 and up, you have to bypass the gateway module, which kind of sucks. Unless you pay for a subscription with your Snap-on scanner, you really can't even scan these things properly without having a subscription or a bypass cable. Yeah, and on the Rams, you gotta pull the radio out to even get to the bypass module. So I'm pretty sure on these, it's pretty simple. Go right under the dash. It's been a 23. I don't know if they changed where the location is, so about to find out. So on the 2018 ups, they're not under here. It's actually behind the radio, just like the Rams. So I gotta pull the bezel and get the radio out to get to the gateway module. Bezel's off, radio screen is out, and the module is right there. So we gotta get to the back side and get the right one unplugged and get our HP tuners bypass module plugged up. And now we are reading the file. It's gonna take about 10 minutes, so I'm probably gonna go ahead and plug the battery charger up, keep the battery up. I mean, it's a brand new car, so it should be perfectly fine. But we're gonna get this file read, send it over to HP tuners, and get the computer pulled out and sent off. All right, so PCM is out, so I need to get this thing shipped off to HP tuners and get this thing started. This is like the first part of the process. We got to get this thing unlocked so we can get a tune on this thing. And you don't have to go with HP tuners. You can definitely send it to Diablo, have them unlock it, and flash the file and be driving as soon as you get your PCM back. But like I said before, we want to have the ability to do actual dyno tune, make our own changes, things like that. Because when you're doing the Diablo, it's just a flash tune, and there's no adjustments you can make to it. So let's get this thing sent off. All right, so we got the PCM back from HP tuners. Let's get this thing installed and see if the car will crank, and then we'll get on to the Procharger install. So I wanted to make sure the car still run after putting the PCM back in before we actually threw the Procharger on, and in case there was ever an issue. And it's running. It does tell you to go into your PCM scanner and delete the check engine light, because it will be on. But, I guess I can put everything back together. I'm gonna leave the HP tuners unlock cable plugged to the gateway module, just for when we go to tune the car, we're able to actually tune it through the OBD2 port and not have to worry about that. But I do have a bunch of stuff flashing, so I'm gonna go ahead and clear these codes and just see if the check engine light goes away. So check engine light's gone, everything's good, throttle's back. So we're good to go. It's time to put a Procharger on. got everything laid out on the table. It's time to start digging into this thing. I think what I'm gonna do first is probably go ahead and do the injectors, get the motor stuff done. I gotta get everything off the front of the motor so I can get the crank pin. It comes with the crank pin and kit. Basically the same as the LS. Comes with a drill bit, comes with a pin. That's important. Keep the crank pulley from slipping on the crank. Comes with extra fluid for the supercharger. It comes with a booster pump, I think. Yeah, fuel pump booster. Voltage booster. Kind of a different thing I haven't seen. Still got a Hobbs switch, but it's got a smaller little module than I've ever seen. Usually booster pumps are much bigger than that. Must be something new that Procharger's come out with. Yep, full kit. Pretty nice kit, to be honest. The bracket looks pretty simple compared to like the Camaros and Corvettes. The biggest thing is getting the bumper off without scratching it, and getting the intercooler on that is like the major task, which I don't think is still gonna be too bad. Let's just dive in. So we're at a point where I'm gonna go ahead and do the crank pin and get that bolt loose. It's kind of difficult. You don't have a whole lot of room between the radiator for an impact. And when you go to torque the bolt back down, when you're going back. What I do on these cars is I take the little dust cover off, and I take a little pry bar, just kind of stick it right in there like that. And where I'm at, I have so much leverage. You know, I can literally just kind of hold this with 2 or 3 fingers, if you can get them in there. And you can loosen the bolt up pretty easily. So that's what I did. I got the bolt loose. Figured I'd give you a little tip there. Just when it comes to the crank bolt, it's gotta be tight. You cannot just snug it up and hope it's good. It's gotta be tight. So this is the kind of stuff I hate when getting kits. This is a 2022, and you can see factory bolts M14, it's M16. Looking on their part sheet, it even says 2020 plus 6.4, what I have. Even here it says M16. It's not the right bolt. So I'm kind of screwed here as far as pinning this. I got to figure something out. I'm gonna call my buddies at Shift Fast. I know they just done one of these not too long ago, and see if they have the right kit. I'm not sure what year they had, but yeah, kind of sucks. So it looks like the jig, the center jig, fits just fine. It fits in the crank, and the balancer pulley really good and tight. I used the factory bolt to kind of press it in a little bit more. And I'm gonna go ahead and put the factory bolt back in. And I mean, you can see half the crank, half the balancer. I think the pin's gonna be just fine. So let's give it a try. So what I ended up doing was find another M14 by 1.5 thread bolt that I can use. Don't have no washer. That washer's too big for it to allow you to do your drilling, because you can see the ring, that's right where it needs to be drilled. So got a bolt without a washer. I'm gonna snug it down, get the drilling. So now you can see bolt's tight, and you can see we're dead in the middle where we're supposed to be. All right, so we are pinned. Everything looks good. And you can see even the measurements they give you are still correct. The 1 5/8 inches. So yeah, pins pressed in nice. Everything looks good. Let's get the bolt back tight, torqued, and let her rip. So even looking at this, they even tell you it's an M14-15 bolt in the diagram. They just happen to stick the wrong piece in what I need. So the actual torque, 130, 129, it's about right. So I'm gonna get this bolt torqued, and I just wanted to show you that because it does show you the right one here. My kit, even them having the paper diagram, it was wrong. Got our main bracket installed. Now it's time to get the Procharger on. But now we have to fill it with 1 bottle of oil. Comes with 1 bottle, and it also comes with 3 extra bottles. All it holds is 1, that's all it takes. We're gonna go ahead and put our drain line on because the drain is gonna be pretty hard to get to once it's on the actual bracket. So they give you this nice little drain line, you screw it in the bottom, and then you have a spot to drain it. Makes it pretty convenient. So let's get this thing mounted. Got the radiator mounted back up, got the lower crossed arm on, got the lower radiator support on, and now I'm doing the intercooler brackets. It comes with supplied bolts. There's also a bolt on the back side that comes in through the back of the radiator support. It's a little 5mm Allen, and having this ball Allen helps a lot because there's really no way to get in there to tighten it with a straight. This side has a bunch of brake lines in the way, so being able to come in at an angle and tighten it, don't need much, just snug up. Let's get the intercooler in. All right, so intercooler's mounted for the most part. It was pretty tricky to get that thing in there. The radiator's kind of flopping around. You're trying not to damage anything. So mine has the active cruise control module up front. So that was kind of had to be removed. But the horns have been relocated here. It tells you to go ahead and tighten the intercooler up and mount it all the way up high as it'll go. But that did not allow me to get the intercooler box on, whatever they're calling this, plenum box. So I had to loosen the brackets and drop the intercooler down to get this thing on correctly. Now I'm able to go back up with it. You can see the gap now. I got that on. It's time to mount this 90. It's too long, it's gotta be cut. So what I'd like to do is I took the clamps that's supposed to clamp it. I kind of put it in the center of everything. That way the cuts are good. And I just kind of line my clamps up about where they need to be for the most part. And then I cut it. But you don't want to cut too much at one time, so make a few cuts if you have to. So you can see here what I mean. I kind of just use the clamp as a guide. Kind of just cut it where I need to. Now this thing should fit right in there. I will say I cut it right the first time, but that thing is very difficult to get on, especially when you're trying to have both your clamps on. What I did was I actually took the throttle body off, put it on this end, and just kind of folded it back here, slid the throttle body in this way. Went pretty good. But what I will say is if I was gonna do it again, I would probably just take the nuts off these clamps. Just get them off the hose, get the hose on, because you can collapse this hose good enough to get it on, and then just wrap the clamps around. It's probably the easiest way. Now it's about time to put the radiator support back in because I had to take it back down. The cooling fans proved to be pretty difficult to get in because the intercooler makes you have to move the radiator back a good ways. And I got the drop mounts on for the radiator support. You can see there where originally where the bracket bolted up, and that's how far back it had to move. The intercooler is physically pushing it back. So honestly, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't put the cooling fan on before the intercooler because I just don't see anything impeding to keep you from installing it, because if you're not careful, you will destroy the radiator trying to get that fan in there. One thing I did do was I popped this off. It comes off pretty easy just to give it that little bit more room to get it up. But yeah, I think if I had to do it again, cooling fan would be going on before the intercooler. All right, intercooler piping is on. It's kind of weird. They send you nice T-clamps that are shown what you can see, but then once you get down that way, you get just rubber boots and yeah, regular hose clamps. But it was a little aggravating figuring out the actual piping because the diagram doesn't really, I mean, it shows it how I got it, but it was a mess to try to get actually on right. Since we went with the race valve and the race intercooler, which is much bigger, it's a little different setup. But it's all on there, everything fits good now. So now it's time to install the hob switch and our vacuum manifold in our brake booster line. Something I like to do is the brass fittings just kind of throw it off. When you tee that in, they look kind of terrible. So what I do is I take Tessa tape, which is for electrical work, and I just kind of wrap it around the ends of the brass, even that piece. Just that way, when it's back there and the hose is slid on, you won't even really pay no attention that it's even there. Just little details like that. The brass just makes me think of plumbing supplies. I don't know, it's kind of weird. So I just installed the map sensor. The O-ring they supplied with the adapter was way too fat to fit in there. It kept wanting to roll it up, and that would have been a vacuum leak or even a boost leak, and the map sensor wouldn't have read right. So I got a different O-ring and put on it, and that's done. So now we're on to the fuel system. This thing does come with a booster, well, basically a booster pump, voltage booster. It's just Procharger's version of it. Pretty nice, it's small, smallest one I've seen so far. So this goes in the trunk. We got a T-harness to plug into the fuel pump. This wire is what goes to the hob switch to let it know to turn on. And if you got a 20 and down, you got a lot more work to do. All right, so hob switch is hooked up. We're hooked to the fuse box like it asked. Everything looks good. I mean, you can see the screw clamps kind of stick out. I would rather use constant tension clamps, but I didn't have any. But having a little bit of Tessa tape just kind of hides the brass. It doesn't stick out like a sore thumb under the hood. Got it run all through here. I didn't have enough of the brown wire to run all the way to the front and then over to the fuse box, so I had to add some wire. Everything in the trunk's done. What I actually done was took the brown wire and put it inside the actual power wire that plugs up from the booster pump. As you can see right there, it just runs right on the same loom. Tucked away, nice. Just runs right along there. Good to go. So everything else can go back in the trunk. Since the radiator got moved down and back, these no longer line up if you want to be able to put this back on. So I'm just gonna take and cut these off and see where it's at. So trimming those off made it go on just fine. And you really want it on just because of your inner fender goes to the bottom of this. And I always see these things get ate up by the wheel because there's nothing to support them. All right, we got the car on the dyno. Got the file read. Time to do some tuning. All right, so we're pretty much done tuning. We're just gonna do a little bit of driving around, just make sure drivability's dead on, but made more power than I expected. So we're at 644, 621 torque. I mean, good air fuel. I mean, this thing's gonna be a ripper. I mean, this thing just drives so good. I mean, just like a stock car, because it basically is. Good car. And it's crazy. The car is, hey, let's be honest, it's a heavy car, but it just feels so planted, and I don't know, it just drives really good. I don't know if I'm getting older or what, but I mean, this thing still has bone stock cats, stock mufflers, stock everything. 100% stock car other than the Procharger, and it just drives amazing. The sounds, I mean, the factory mufflers sound really good. I don't really like these cars the way they sound when you put exhaust. Almost like the Coyote Mustangs. They don't have a good sound. It's hard to make those cars sound good.